Casting my mind back, I remember it being a fairly overcast day when we made the drive to Manchester in the autumn of 2000. I'd never been to a gaming convention before, but this was Gen Con, the daddy, and the appearance of a certain person, someone I'd been dying to meet for a long time, prompted me to take a deep breath, book the tickets and just go. I took my youngest brother along with his copy of the collected first 3 books in the Dark Elf trilogy, which he had brought due to author Bob Salvatore making an appearance. One of my long-time role-playing pals, Mark, a RuneQuest guru who could give many a run for their money with his frustratingly encyclopedic knowledge of all things Glorantha. After gaining entrance, we wandered around for a bit, and I have to say it was a bit sparse, though I did manage to snag a copy of Dungeon Magazine #1 for £1, and there were many small gaming companies inviting people to come and try out their new game. I recall there being one that was a strategy game similar to HeroClix that involved gladiators. Eventually, we came upon Larry Elmore's booth, with Larry sat there with literally a picture he had drawn of himself apologising for his art being temporarily misplaced. He was friendly and happy to sign anything of his. I managed to track down some art prints from one of the stalls of covers he had done for various publications that were relatively cheap and asked him to sign them. The real signature in gold pen looked strange next to the one embedded in the print. We continued to wander around, noticing several characters from sci-fi shows with queues at their booths for their autograph, when we spotted him. Sat behind a table looking slightly bored was the godfather of gaming, the late great Gary Ernie Gygax, and there was not a single person in sight to meet him. We quickly made our way over and Mark, slightly starstruck, said, "It's you," to which Gary replied, "Yes, it's me." Gary was a very friendly guy. He was happy to sign my copies of GDQ 1-7 Queen of the Spiders and T1-4 The Temple of Elemental Evil that I brought along. We chatted with him for a short time, then proceeded to mooch about the convention, waiting for his Q&A session later in the day. Meanwhile, my brother had bumped into Bob Salvatore and had his book signed, saying that Bob was also a really friendly guy. Eventually, the Q&A session arrived, and we filed into the auditorium expecting hordes of people who wanted to talk to one of the guys responsible for the genesis of our hobby, and shockingly, there were around 10 people, including who I had brought and 2 friends I had met there. Gary came in and sat down, and we literally got to ask him everything we had ever wanted to for all these years. Uni killing Lolth in the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon? Check. Queen of the Spiders being so deadly? Check. The Gygaxian encounter whereby the treasure to defeat the monster is in the room with the monster? Check. The list went on. He was happy to talk about anything with us, and gave us some great insight into the early days of D&D, the business of TSR, and his thoughts on the then new 3rd edition in what turned out to be quite an intimate setting. About halfway through, he was joined by founder of Wizards of the Coast, Peter Atkinson, who had a bit of an air of a used car salesman about him, and talked about the business side of acquiring TSR, telling us a funny story about the omission of the Buck Rogers properties from the deal, which was interesting in its own way. But ultimately, the conversation fell back to Gary and his thoughts on everything from the ill-fated TSR collectible card game Spellfire to the then fairly new Baldur's Gate PC games, both of which he had nothing to do with, but was happy to give his opinions on. As for the books I had signed, yes, they're still in my collection, and ones I'll probably never sell, as they serve as a reminder for finally getting to meet the man himself, Zagyg Yargeni.